The lockdown is costing Australia's economy $4 billion every week. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from news.com.au that's discussing the economic impacts that the lockdown is having on our economy, and frankly, the surprise of the Morrison government. $4 billion every week, a hit to our economy. Now, let's just put that into context, and we'll bring up one industry here that is a favourite of Australia, the tourism industry. $60 billion, or was $60 billion. Probably close to zero right now. Just think about that. That's per annum. And our economy is getting hit by $4 billion every week. So, makes you think, doesn't it? And just think about all the debt that the government is incurring to keep everything propped up. We're going to have to pay that back in the future one way or another, guys. Either through increased taxation, or if you're an MMT proponent, through increased taxation to manage our economy, to keep the little plebs in line while throwing more money at us. So let's have a look at this. Australians will be urged to get back to work at the office as the Morrison government reveals the current restrictions are delivering a $4 billion hit to the economy every week. Why are they urging us to get back to work now? I shared a post on Facebook or Twitter about a business over in the States who'd managed to secure loans and contacted their employees to get them back in. And they said, nah, I'll stay on unemployment until that runs out, then I'll come in. I wonder how many people would be annoyed that they're not going to get their 6 months holiday on JobKeeper if they're not working. As National Cabinet meets today to hear from New Zealand Premier Jacinda Ardern about the prospect of trans-Tasman flights resuming, lifting more lockdown restrictions is also on the agenda. I mean, everyone is singing praise of New Zealand. Their lockdowns were even more restricted, more severe than Australia. But the number of ICU beds is hardly anything. People think they're a country. They're smaller than our states, guys. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, who will outline the growing cost of closing restaurants, retailers, and keeping workers quarantined at home, is forecast to hit $50 billion in a speech to the National Press Club on Tuesday. We must get people back into jobs and back into work, he said. For every extra week the current restrictions remain in place, Treasury estimates that we will see close to a $4 billion reduction in economic activity from a combination of reduced workforce participation, productivity, and consumption. History shows that the longer people are unemployed, the harder it is to get a job. In the early 1990s, unemployment increased by 5% over 3 years, but took 7 years to get back to its pre-crisis levels. And you have to realize, when the government talks about unemployment rates, they're talking about the ABS statistics. You've got a particular methodology the ABS uses. If you compare it to Roy Morgan, they have, generally you double the ABS rates. But what I consider more important is the combination of underemployed and unemployed. Last time I checked a few days ago, Roy Morgan was sitting at 25%, roughly, give or take a few point of percent, like 24.7%. For underemployed and unemployed. That's the big worry, guys. And that's a percentage of our workforce. That's a lot of people. So as it's been remarked, unemployment went up in the elevator and went down by the stairs. Mr. Frydenberg will argue Australia is well placed to bounce back because it has contained the pandemic. Okay, well, I may need to have a look at that speech. I may do a live stream on it because I'm interested to see how we're well placed to bounce back. Our economy is, a big part of our economy is our tourism sector. A big part is our education sector, which is heavily dependent on international students. And not all of them are from New Zealand, everyone. A big part of our economy is exporting natural resources. That could potentially take a hit if the world enters into a recession, which is being predicted. So how are we well placed to bounce back? Maybe if all of those things switch back on, then we're well placed to bounce back. But can they switch on? Will they continue? I did a video this morning, or yesterday, about iron ore. Coal prices in trouble. Iron ore prices are in trouble. So, but he will warn, the unemployment rate is forecast to double to around 10% in just 3 months. It underlines the importance of getting people back to work as soon as possible to avoid the long-term economic and social impacts from a high unemployment rate, he said. Confirming that the economy is on track to enter into the first recession since the 1990s, the Treasurer will reveal for the first time that the economy is now forecast to go backwards in the June quarter. So they're actually mentioning the R word. So we're actually in a recession. I'd love to see a recession take account of population growth as well. That'll look even worse. If you look at our growth per capita since the GFC, it's been below trend. If we're having a real, it's going to be a bad recession. The formal confirmation of whether Australia is in a recession can only be determined when there are 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. The March quarter figures will be released in June. Gross domestic product is expected to fall significantly, with Treasury forecasting a 10% fall in the June quarter, the equivalent of around $50 billion. So $50 billion, that's nearly the size of the entire tourism industry. It's bigger than all of the iron ore exports that Australia does. And we're the biggest iron ore exporter on the planet. It's a big hit, guys. It's a big hit. I don't think having flights coming from New Zealand is going to make that much of a difference. What do you reckon, guys? If Australia had introduced an Italian-style lockdown for 2 months, the adverse impact on GDP would double to 24% or $120 billion in the June quarter. What about if we had introduced what Sweden did? Swedish-style lockdown. Will there be mention of that in this article? I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt it. This would have seen enormous stress on our financial system as a result of increased balance sheet impairments, widespread firm closures, higher unemployment and household debt. This was the cliff we were standing on, Mr. Frydenberg said. How do we know this isn't going to materialize? Remember, this pandemic is just the pin that's potentially bursting a lot of bubbles. One could be our property sector. Notwithstanding Australia's success to date on the health front and the unprecedented scale and scope of our economic response, our economic indicators are going to get considerably worse in the period ahead before they get better. Some of the hardest hit sectors like retail and hospitality are among the biggest employers, accounting for more than 2 million employees between them. Well, that's the thing. Retail and hospitality, will they bounce back? There'll be some businesses that just don't open again. And there'll be behavioral changes in people. So, despite the panic buying of household goods in March, Australia's credit card data confirms spending is plunging. Recent credit card data from the bank shows that spending on arts and recreation services, accommodation and food services were down 60% and 70% respectively in late April compared to the previous year, Mr. Frydenberg said. Despite the toilet paper boom and the record increase in retail trade in March due to panic buying, overall consumption, according to the NAB data, has fallen 19.5% since the start of the year, with declines across all jurisdictions. Victoria had the steepest fall of 23%, followed by ACT of 20%, WA 20%, New South Wales 20%, Queensland 18%, South Australia 16%, NT 15%, Tasmania nearly 15%. So there you go. And how many people will realise how much money they've wasted on stuff they didn't need? How many people are going to make permanent changes from this? Or how many people got so close to the wire of going under they were only saved by JobKeeper and banks giving them a holiday on their mortgage? That has to be a wake-up call for people, doesn't it? It would have to be. You'd hope. You'd hope. The economic shock the world is confronting dwarfs the GFC. Reassuringly, National Cabinet has signalled that from this Friday it will assess more opportunities for easing restrictions, building on decisions already taken to date, such as around elective surgeries or, in some states, limiting gatherings and visitations. Central to the back-to-work strategy is reopening schools. That's already happening in WA, SA and Northern Territory, where a majority of students are now attending the classroom again. In Queensland, that will now occur later this month, with New South Wales also planning a staggered return to classes. Only Victoria and Canberra currently plan to keep most children away from classes for term 2. But as Victoria reported a new confirmed COVID case involving a teacher, and New South Wales confirmed a 7-year-old schoolboy attending a public school had tested positive, New South Wales Premier GB warned Australians should expect more cases as schools reopen. The Warragamba public school student had mild symptoms and the campus was closed for intensive cleaning. I'd say to parents and teachers, the school communities, this is likely to occur on a more regular basis when schools go back, the Premier said. I anticipate it will happen more frequently, but please have confidence. We've gone through the process and we know what it takes to keep everyone safe when this occurs. Well, there you go, guys. A push to get more people back to work. $4 billion a week hit to the economy. Do you still think we'll have a V-shaped recovery, everyone? We'll have to see. Thank you for watching. Please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or on Patreon. You can support us via our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay, or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. We have merch from HeiseSays. You can use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, and PayPal. Take care, guys. See you next time.